Hello crafty friends, I'm Lien from Studio Kato and I'm so glad you're joining me again today. Today's card is another part in my Casual Friday series, so I'll be making a clean and simple design. Now I'm actually making a scene card and those aren't usually associated with being clean or simple, but I promise you this one is. For this card, I started with an A2 sized watercolor cardstock panel. I'm using the Canson Montval 200 GSM cardstock, and I masked off an area with some purple tape. And on that, I am stamping the Fox's Life stamp set by Colorado Craft Company. This is designed by Anita Jerem, so you know it's going to be lovely. And I'm stamping that with Versafine Onyx black ink onto that cardstock. I'm stamping it a couple of times because of the masking and because of the texture of the watercolor cardstock. It's a little harder to stamp. You know me, I love my clear embossing, so I am using Wow Clear Gloss Superfine embossing powder as well. Now to paint this, I started with the background because I want that to be lighter than my focal images. So I'm starting out with the sky, and for that I am first wetting the paper. I'm using a flat brush for this, and then I can bring in some paint. So I'm doing a wet on wet technique today. I'm making an ombre sunset sky, and I'm going from blue to purple to pink to orange to yellow. Now I have to admit, it's been ages since I made a background like this, so it did take me a while to get it exactly how I wanted it to be, and because I worked over the colors so much, they came out just a little bit duller than I wanted them to be. Don't worry, if you want a better example of this exact same background, you can watch until the end, and then I'll paint it onto an envelope, and I do a much better job there. Now I'm using a tiny brush. This one is by Vinci. I will list all the products I'm using in the description box below, and I'll make sure to list my brushes from now on as well. I'm painting in the beach with a muted light brown color, and then I'm coloring in all the little things on the beach. There are just rocks, there are pebbles, and I think sea glass, so I painted some of them green, some of them I painted just darker brown and gray, and the shells I am painting them in pink. I'm using the same colors mostly so it doesn't get too busy because I think that image is quite busy already. Now once the sky and the beach are dry, I can then paint in the ocean. I did that last in my background because it's the darkest, and if I had done this before I painted the sky, I would have gone from blue to yellow and back to blue because it would have blended back into my sky. I'm working in layers for this ocean, and I am painting in some darker patches later on and some darker lines, wave lines, so this gives it a little bit more interest. I like how this one turned out, but I do think, again, that the ocean on my envelope, I am so spoiling the envelope design, but I think it turned out better on my envelope. And once my background is all done, I can paint in the foxes. And I don't think I mentioned it yet, but I'm using the Mijello Mission Gold paint set. I love these watercolors. They're great, vibrant watercolors, and they come with a really nice color selection as well. The reason I painted these foxes last is because I really wanted them to be nice and crisp, and because I know myself and I color outside of the lines a lot. So I thought I would color some blue into the foxes, and you can fix that, but it's harder to fix if those foxes are already colored. So that's why I saved it till last. I added just a little bit of black to one of the fox's paws and ears. I really like coloring my foxes that way, but to make it a little bit more interesting, I painted them both slightly different. I also painted the one sitting down. That one is just a little bit lighter and a little bit more yellow orange than the other one. The one with the black ears is more red orange. Though I did keep them both quite muted. Now once the watercolor painting is done, I can peel off my masks, and then I'm going in with some white acrylic paint. I'm being very careful because this will cover up the stamped lines even though there is embossing powder over them. And I'm just adding some white acrylic paint to the crashing waves there. You will see that better again on the envelope. And I told you scene cards can be clean and simple because this is basically it for my card. I am stamping that really large sentiment on there from the same Fox's Life stamp set by Colorado Craft Company. I'm also using Versafine Onyx black ink for that and clear embossing it as well with WOW Clear Gloss Superfine embossing powder. And that's really it for my card. You can make that a one-layer card if you make your card base out of watercolor cardstock, but I am very stingy with my watercolor cardstock, so I just glued that onto a regular card base. For my envelope, I am using the same watercolor cardstock that I used for my card. It's the Canson Montval 200 GSM watercolor cardstock, and I'm folding that into an A2 sized envelope with my We Are Memory Keepers 123 punch board. I'll obviously be painting on the back of the envelope, but I am masking some of the front section as well because I know if I do wet on wet technique, the paint is likely to seep underneath the surface I am working on, so I'm just masking off the edges on the other side of the cardstock as well. Now once the masks are in place, I can do the same thing on my card, but better. I am painting on some clean water first, not too much. Again, I've said it a million times before, but if you're working with too much water, your colors are going to do things you're not anticipating. This just gives you more control. The less wet your painting is, the more control you have over where the paint will go. So I first added in some clean water and then added in my colors, and I'm blending those together, just going back and forth with my brush. I'm then painting the beach, blending that out into just white because I will overlap the beach with my ocean. I am also dropping in some little spots because this beach didn't have any details and I thought that was a little bit too empty, so I'm just dropping in some spots of darker brown. Now I heat set that before I moved on to painting my ocean. So the ocean is painted wet on dry. That way my colors aren't bleeding into the sky or into the beach, and it keeps it nice and clean. And once I'm done painting that, I can heat set that as well and then go in with some more of that white acrylic paint to paint in some crashing waves. I'm just applying that paint first with a round brush, and then I can drag it backwards with a super dry flat brush. This is a tiny flat brush, and it works really well to create a nice crashing wave effect. I have an entire video on this technique on my YouTube channel already. It's the first video I posted, and I'll try to link it in the upper right corner of the video, and if not, in the description below. And that's it for a really nice, clean and simple scene card and matching envelope. I really like how this one turned out, and I hope you did too. If you did, make sure to leave a thumbs up on this video and leave your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to read them. In the description below, you can find a link to my Instagram and my blog if you want to see more of my cards. And you can also subscribe to my channel here if you want to see more of my videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.